September 2025 has been an interesting month for indie games. Apparently there was some sort of hotly anticipated release which dropped with short notice at the start of the month. But here at IndieLoupe we've had a keen eye on a few of September's more modest titles, those which might have been somewhat overshadowed. From last week's release, Henry Halfhead, to my unexpected personal favourite game of the month, Heroes of the Seven Islands, review coming next week, there's, as always, been a ton of games worth looking at. Today we're bringing you some that came out in the last few days. 3 of those delayed their releases for reasons, and 3 of them are early access titles. There's one that falls into both categories. But all 5 have been sitting on IndieLoupe's radar for some time, and all of them are, we think, worthy of a little look. In a move that you'd like to think is indicative of the indie scene as a whole, the developers of these games have banded together to cross-promote one another. A little more on that at the end of the video. But for now, let's dive straight in with the games in order of release. One quick note before we do, actually. Typically at IndieLoupe we only bring you games that we've played thoroughly. That's not the case here, so while we do think they all look promising, this is just us shining a light on them. We can't say for certain how good they might end up being. Cool? Cool. Starbirds is a collaboration between 2 Germany-based companies with bird mascots, developer Toukana Interactive and that YouTube channel with the difficult to pronounce name. It's been out in early access for a little while longer than the other games on today's list, the rest of which arrived on Steam at some point this week. Toukana's previous game, Dorfromantik, was, to be honest, not my cup of tea. It was supposed to be a chill and relaxing experience, but I always found it weirdly stressful trying to ensure that I put my tiles in the best place possible. Asteroid Mining Simulator Starbirds feels a lot more in my lane, and though it currently boasts significantly less content than it aims to have when its full release rolls around, about a year from now, there already seems to be a fair amount to get your teeth, or beak I guess, sunk into. Players are tasked with gathering valuable minerals from increasingly complex asteroids and completing missions to upgrade their space stations. There's something that looks inherently satisfying about building bases on a tiny sphere, spinning your asteroids round once you've filled it to the brim with factories, pipes and industry. My early impressions are that it's more of a puzzle game than a vast base builder akin to the likes of Factorio or Satisfactory, and to be honest, that makes me a lot more excited for its 1.0 release in 2026. Starbirds is available in early access right now. I played a healthy chunk of Pixelsplit's Deadly Days, a zombie-slaying roguelike where you'd drive your busload of uninfected little pixel people to various locations, looking for other survivors and useful weapons, tools and resources to haul back to your gated safe house. You'd level everything up over the course of your playthrough and, once suitably prepared, end the apocalypse for good. Its spin-off, Deadly Days Roadtrip, marks quite literally a departure from that. Instead of returning to your base at the end of each excursion, this time you're travelling across a procedurally generated land as a lone survivor, dealing with zombies in a way that appears a hell of a lot more animated than in the previous game, more akin to a Survivors-like than the comparatively tame original. It's also had a 2.5D facelift, with the environments looking far crisper than in its predecessor, and further mechanical changes including an inventory management system as a key component of the game's strategy. It's another one of those that's currently in early access. At the moment it has 5 playable characters, but upon its full release next year it intends to have more of everything, from those playable characters to additional items, maps, bosses and more. Deadly Days Roadtrip entered early access on the 22nd of September. The same team behind 2019's Ape Out, Gabe Cuzzillo, Maxi Boch and Bennett Foddy, returned this week with their newest title, Baby Steps. Without detracting from the work they all do, one of those names is likely to be more familiar to you than the others, and Baby Steps, on the surface, feels significantly closer to Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy and Foddy's earlier title, QWOP, than a top-down guerrilla-based smash-em-up. Baby Steps is the next step, on that evolution from awkward physics-based side-scroller where you're trying to run in a straight line, to awkward physics-based side-scroller where you're trying to climb a mountain, to awkward physics-based walking simulator where you're trying to climb a mountain. Here you're controlling your movements with what can only be described as too much precision, independently managing each leg with a different trigger and thumbstick. A parody of open-world AAA titles, it comes complete with fully VA'd and fully improvised cutscenes, voiced exclusively by, from what I gather, the game's developers. Other key features include a fully dynamic onesie soilage system, which the developers are, understandably, incredibly proud of. It's perhaps the best known of the games on this list, and probably one of those ones where you can tell immediately whether it's going to be your sort of thing or not. That's Baby Steps, out now. From the game I've heard the most about to the one I'd heard least about. Aethermancer, or Aethermancer if you prefer, from Moirai Games and published by Offbrand Games, also arrived on the 23rd. The final of 3 early access titles, Moirai are readopting their tried and tested formula of taking monster taming and adding it to another genre. They described their previous game, Monster Sanctuary, as monster taming meets Metroidvania, and now it's the turn of the ever-present roguelite. While I know their previous game had its fans, in terms of art and appearance, my humble opinion is that this one looks infinitely better, with a much more unique style in place of the more generic pixel art that Monster Sanctuary offered. Of the games covered today, this is also probably the most complex in terms of concept. It's a little more difficult to provide a succinct explanation of Aethermancer, but simplified, it's a party-based RPG where your characters are monsters you've caught throughout your playthrough. Of the 3 early access titles, I'd say this one is currently the most fleshed out, though that's not to say the developers don't intend to add a lot more. According to them, right now it's the cheapest it'll ever be, sales excluded, naturally, with a couple of price increases planned between now and its 1.0 release as more content is added. From the brief amount I've played of the demo that's currently available, I'm already quite impressed, so with some valuable community feedback and further additions, it looks like it could shape out to be something quite special. Perhaps one that's worth picking up early, and I'll be keeping an eye on it. That's Aethermancer, now available in early access. Our final game came out, well, today, if you're watching this on the day it was published. My first impressions of CloverPit from Panik Arcade and Future Friends Games were that it looked like Luck Be a Landlord with the grunge of a Mike Klubnica game, and it turns out the developers would probably agree with me, as they described it as the demonic love child of Balatro, a game inspired by Luck Be a Landlord, and Klubnica's Buckshot Roulette. Again, it's one whose demo I dabbled in, and I can definitely see the inspiration from both games they've mentioned, but it's also distinct enough from either that it does feel fresh, where, at least to me, many other Balatro-inspired games don't. I could see this one being a huge time sink for anyone who does pick it up, because, you know, what something as addictive as Balatro really needed was a slot machine thrown into the mix. For those who've heard me talk about Balatro before, if you're wondering, I have continued to avoid it out of fear of getting hooked, and, in the nicest way possible, CloverPit might be another one I need to steer clear of if I want to have time for anything else. Whether the slot machine mechanic will allow for quite as much variation remains to be seen. Perhaps it might struggle to make runs feel unique in the long term, but my instincts are that there's a lot to see here before you'd need to hop to another game. CloverPit is out today. I mentioned that the developers of these games are working together to promote one another, and I think each has their merits. It's not easy to pick a favourite here. At the time of publication, all 5 are available as a bundle. While it's active, there'll be a link to that in the description, in case you need an excuse to flesh out your Steam library with this quintuple of games, for pretty much the same price as you'd pay for a decent, or perhaps not so decent, AAA title. That bundle will only remain a thing until the 29th of September, so you're in luck if you're watching this before then, but if not, hopefully there's a game or two there that still might be of interest. Let me know in the comments which game you're most excited about, and if there's any you'd like to see a full review of either now, or in the instance of the Early Access trio, once their 1.0 release comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.